I thought turning 30 would be different. I imagined my dad would finally see me as an adult, maybe even acknowledge all the years I'd spent trying to earn his approval. Instead, he forgot my birthday entirely. But when he needed $1,800 for my brother's party 3 weeks later, he didn't hesitate to call. What I sent him in return changed everything between us forever. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from. And if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. My name is Rebecca Martinez, and I've always been the invisible daughter. Growing up in Denver, Colorado, I watched my younger brother Tyler get every opportunity, every celebration, every ounce of my father's attention, while I quietly excelled in school, worked part-time jobs, and tried desperately to prove I was worth noticing. Dad, Michael Martinez, owned a small construction company that kept our family comfortable but never wealthy. Mom, Sarah, worked as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling double shifts to help make ends meet. They were good people, hard-working people, but somehow I always felt like I was competing for space in their hearts against Tyler, who was 4 years younger and seemed to effortlessly command everyone's attention. Tyler was the golden child, the athlete, the charmer, the one who could do no wrong even when he was clearly in the wrong. When he crashed Dad's truck at 17, it was boys will be boys. When I dented the family car backing out of the driveway at 19, I had to pay for repairs with my college savings. When Tyler dropped out of community college to find himself, Dad called it taking time to explore his passions. When I graduated summa cum laude from the University of Colorado with a degree in marketing, Dad missed my graduation because Tyler had a baseball game. The pattern was so consistent that I'd stopped expecting anything different. I moved to Chicago after college, got a job at a mid-sized advertising agency, and built a life for myself far enough away that the constant disappointment couldn't reach me daily. I called home every Sunday, sent birthday cards and Christmas gifts, and visited twice a year like a dutiful daughter should. By the time I was approaching my 30th birthday, I'd made peace with my role in the family. Or so I thought. There was something about turning 30 that made me hope things might be different. Maybe Dad would finally see me as an adult worth celebrating. Maybe this milestone would be the moment he realized I'd been working my whole life to make him proud. I'd been dropping hints for months. During our Sunday calls, I'd mention how excited I was about my birthday, how I was planning to take a few days off work, how 30 felt like such a big milestone. I told them I was thinking of flying home for the weekend, maybe having a small family dinner. Dad would grunt acknowledgement and change the subject to Tyler's latest venture. This time, it was a food truck business that he'd convinced Dad to help finance. Tyler had moved back home after his latest girlfriend kicked him out of her apartment. At 26, he'd never held a job for more than 8 months, had no savings, and seemed to view our parents' house as his personal hotel. But he was charming and funny, and he had this way of making everyone forget his failures by telling entertaining stories about his adventures. The week before my birthday, I called to confirm my visit. Mom answered, sounding tired after a long shift at the hospital. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry, but this weekend isn't great. Tyler's having some friends over for a barbecue, and you know how your father gets when there are too many people in the house." I felt that familiar sting of disappointment, but I pushed it down. "What about Saturday? We could go to dinner, just the 4 of us?" "Well, your father promised to help Tyler move his food truck to a new location on Saturday. And Sunday I'm working a double shift to cover for Janet, who's having surgery. What about Friday evening? I could fly on Friday after work." There was a pause. "Let me talk to your father and see what we can work out." She never called back. Friday, March 15th, my actual birthday, I woke up in my Chicago apartment to absolute silence. No calls, no texts, no messages. I checked my phone obsessively throughout the day, thinking maybe they were planning a surprise call, or maybe the time difference had confused them somehow, even though Colorado was only 2 hours behind. At work, my colleagues took me to lunch and surprised me with a chocolate cake. My boss, Jennifer Walsh, gave me a bottle of expensive wine and told me to take Monday off to extend my birthday weekend. My friend Amanda from the apartment next door brought over Chinese takeout, and we watched movies until midnight. It was a lovely day, filled with people who cared about me. but my own family had forgotten I existed. I stayed up that night staring at my phone, wondering if I should call them. Maybe something had happened. Maybe there was an emergency. But deep down, I knew the truth. I simply hadn't crossed their minds. Saturday morning, I woke up to a text from Mom. "Happy belated birthday, sweetheart. So sorry, yesterday was crazy at work. Hope you had a wonderful day." That was it. No call, no explanation from Dad, no acknowledgement that they'd completely forgotten the most important birthday of my adult life. I spent the weekend in a haze of disappointment and anger. I'd always told myself that I didn't need their validation, that I was successful and independent and didn't require their approval to feel good about myself. But sitting alone in my apartment, I realized how much I'd been lying to myself. I still wanted my father to be proud of me. I still wanted to matter to him. Monday morning, I threw myself into work with renewed intensity. I had a major campaign to launch for a restaurant chain, and I poured all my energy into making it perfect. At least in my professional life, my efforts were recognized and rewarded. 2 weeks passed without any further contact from my family. I didn't call them for our usual Sunday check-in, curious to see if they'd notice. They didn't. Then, on a Tuesday evening while I was working late on a presentation, my phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen, and for a moment, my heart leaped. Maybe he was calling to apologize for missing my birthday. Maybe he'd finally realized how much he'd hurt me. "Rebecca, I need to talk to you about something important." No hello, no how are you, no mention of my birthday. Straight to business. "Hi, Dad, what's going on?" "Tyler's having a big party next month for his food truck launch. He's invited a bunch of potential investors and some food bloggers, and it's really important that everything goes perfectly. This could be his big break." I waited for him to continue, already dreading where this conversation was heading. "The thing is, we need to rent a proper venue, hire a catering company, get professional decorations, the whole 9 yards. Tyler's put together a budget, and we're looking at about $1,800 total." There it was, the reason for his call. "I was hoping you could help us out. I know you're doing well in Chicago, and this would really mean a lot to Tyler, to all of us." I sat in stunned silence. He'd forgotten my 30th birthday completely, hadn't called to check on me in weeks, and now he was asking me to fund my brother's party. "Dad, did you realize you forgot my birthday?" "What? Oh, that. Look, I'm sorry about that, but this is important. Tyler's really trying to make something of himself, and he needs our support. He's 26 years old, Dad. Why can't he pay for his own party? You know Tyler's situation. He's invested everything into this food truck. He's working really hard to get it off the ground." "And what about my situation? What about the fact that I've been working hard my entire life, and you've never once thrown me a party or asked how you could support my career?" Dad's voice turned irritated. "Don't make this about you, Rebecca. This is about family helping family. Tyler would do the same for you." That was laughable. Tyler had never done anything for anyone but himself. When I'd helped him move 3 times in 2 years, when I'd lent him money for car repairs that he never paid back, when I'd written his resume and cover letters for jobs he never bothered to show up for, none of that seemed to count as family helping. "I need some time to think about it," I said finally. "Well, don't think too long. The party's in 3 weeks, and we need to book the venue soon." He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my empty office, surrounded by the glow of my computer screen and the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. The city lights twinkled through the windows, and I could hear the faint sound of traffic from the street below. I'd built a good life here, a life where my accomplishments mattered and my hard work was recognized. But in that moment, I felt like I was 12 years old again, standing in the doorway of Tyler's room while Dad helped him with his science project, invisible and unimportant. That night, I went home and did something I'd never done before. I started researching my father's business, looking into public records, business licenses, financial filings. If he wanted to play games, I was going to arm myself with information. What I found surprised me. Dad's construction company was doing better than I'd realized. Much better. They'd landed several major contracts in the past year, and the business was more profitable than it had ever been. He wasn't some struggling small business owner barely making ends meet. He was a successful contractor who simply didn't want to spend his own money on Tyler's party. I also discovered something else interesting. Tyler's food truck business was registered under Dad's name and address. Dad wasn't just helping Tyler. He was essentially Tyler's business partner, which meant he'd have a stake in any success Tyler achieved. Suddenly, the request for money took on a different meaning. This wasn't about family helping family. This was about Dad wanting me to invest in Tyler's business, while keeping all the potential profits for himself and Tyler. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Dad had managed to forget my birthday, ignore my accomplishments, and then ask me to fund his investment in Tyler's future. He'd never once asked how he could help my career or shown any interest in my success, but he expected me to bankroll Tyler's dreams without question. A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. I spent the next few days crafting my response. I wasn't going to give him the money. That much was clear. But I also wasn't going to simply say no and let him paint me as the selfish daughter who wouldn't help her brother. I was going to give him exactly what he'd given me over the years, a taste of his own medicine. The idea came to me while I was working on a campaign for a client who ran a series of food festivals. I knew exactly how to respond to Dad's request, and it would be a response he'd never forget. I was going to send him a surprise that would make him realize exactly what kind of daughter he'd been ignoring all these years. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I knew exactly what I was going to do, and for the first time since Dad's phone call, I felt excited instead of hurt. I grabbed my laptop and started researching event planning companies in Denver, catering services, venue rentals, and everything else Tyler would need for his precious party. But I wasn't planning to pay for it. I was planning something much more interesting. I called my friend Marcus Chen, who worked as a freelance photographer and videographer in Denver. We'd met during college and stayed in touch over the years. Marcus was talented, creative, and most importantly, he understood family drama better than anyone I knew. "Rebecca, how's Chicago treating you?" His voice was warm and familiar. "It's good, Marcus. Listen, I need a favor, and it's going to sound a little crazy. The best favors always do. What's up?" I explained the situation: Dad forgetting my birthday, Tyler's party, the request for money. Marcus listened without interrupting, occasionally making sympathetic noises. "So, what do you need from me?" he asked when I finished. "I want to document Tyler's party. Everything. I want a complete record of this event that Dad thinks is so important he's willing to guilt me into paying for it." "You want me to crash the party?" "No, I want you to be the official photographer. I'm going to hire you to document the entire event, and I'm going to pay for everything Dad asked me to pay for. But there's a twist." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "I'm listening. I want you to create a professional presentation afterward, a detailed breakdown of exactly what $1,800 bought. Every appetizer, every decoration, every minute of the party. I want receipts, photos, testimonials from guests. Think of it as a case study in family investment." "And then what?" "Then I'm going to send it to Dad as a gift, a complete analysis of his return on investment." Marcus laughed. "You're diabolical." "I love it." "Can you do it?" "Absolutely. But Rebecca, are you sure about this? This is gonna burn some bridges." I thought about my 30th birthday, about all the times I'd been overlooked, about the years I'd spent trying to earn approval that never came. "The bridges are already burned, Marcus. I'm just making sure everyone can see the smoke." We spent the next hour planning the operation. Marcus would pose as the photographer I'd hired for the party. He'd document everything with professional thoroughness, interview guests about their experience, and create a comprehensive report on the event's success. I'd pay for everything Dad had requested, but I'd also pay for Marcus's services and a few extras that would make the documentation even more complete. After hanging up with Marcus, I called the venue Tyler had chosen, a trendy event space called the Warehouse District. I spoke with their event coordinator, a woman named Lisa Patterson, who was surprisingly helpful. "Yes, we have availability for April 12th, she said. "Your brother Tyler came by last week to look at the space. He seemed very excited about his food truck launch." "He is. I'd like to book the space and discuss catering options." "Wonderful. He mentioned his sister might be helping with the costs." It's so nice when families support each other's dreams. The irony wasn't lost on me. Yes, family support is important. I'd like to upgrade the package Tyler originally looked at. I want to make sure this party is unforgettable. Lisa and I spent an hour going through options. The basic package Tyler had priced was modest. Standard decorations, simple catering, basic sound system. But I had other ideas. I'd like to add professional photography and videography services. I want every moment documented. I also want to upgrade the catering to include a broader selection of appetizers, and I'd like to add a dessert station. That sounds wonderful. The upgraded package would be $2,400 total. Perfect. I also want to add something special, a surprise element that will make this party memorable for everyone involved. What did you have in mind? I want to create a presentation during the party, a slideshow showcasing Tyler's journey to this moment, his family's support, and the significance of this milestone. Can you arrange for a large screen and projection equipment? Absolutely. We can set up our premium AV package. That would be an additional $300. Done. I'll also need tables set up for a documentation station where guests can leave written testimonials about their experience. I want this to be a celebration that Tyler and my family will remember forever. Lisa was practically bubbling with enthusiasm. This is going to be such a special event. Your brother is lucky to have such a supportive sister. If only she knew. I spent the rest of the day making arrangements. I booked the upgraded venue package, arranged for premium catering, hired Marcus for photography and videography, and set up several additional services that would make the documentation comprehensive. The total cost was $3,200, significantly more than the $1,800 Dad had requested. But I could afford it, and the extra investment would make my point even clearer. Next, I called Dad back. He answered on the second ring, his voice hopeful. Rebecca, I'm glad you called. Have you thought about what we discussed? I have, Dad. I've decided to help with Tyler's party. That's wonderful. I knew you'd come through for the family. I'm going to pay for everything. The venue, the catering, the decorations, everything Tyler needs for his launch party. Dad's voice brightened considerably. Really? That's incredible, Rebecca. Tyler's going to be so excited. We all are. I'm glad you're excited, Dad. I've already made all the arrangements. Tyler doesn't need to worry about anything. Just show up and enjoy his party. This is really generous of you. I have to admit, I wasn't sure you'd be willing to help. Family helps family, right? That's what you said. Exactly. Tyler's going to owe you big time for this. I doubted Tyler would see it that way, but I didn't correct Dad. I just want Tyler to have the party he deserves. And I want you to have the celebration you think is important. You're a good daughter, Rebecca. I know I don't always show it, but I'm proud of you. The words I'd been waiting to hear my entire life, and they came only after I'd agreed to pay for Tyler's party. The timing was perfect. It proved exactly what I'd suspected about Dad's conditional love. I'm glad to hear that, Dad. I'll make sure Tyler's party is unforgettable. I can't wait to see what you put together. Tyler's going to be blown away. He was going to be blown away, all right, just not in the way he expected. After hanging up, I called Tyler directly. He answered on the fourth ring, sounding slightly out of breath. Rebecca, what's up? I wanted to talk to you about your party. Dad told me you're launching your food truck business. Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I've got some potential investors coming, and a few food bloggers said they might show up. This could really be my big break. That's exciting, Tyler. I want to help make sure your party is a success. Dad said you might be able to help with the costs. I really appreciate that, sis. I know $1,800 is a lot of money. Actually, I'm going to do more than just help with costs. I'm going to pay for everything and upgrade the whole event. I want your launch party to be professional and memorable. Tyler was quiet for a moment. Seriously? You'd do that? Of course. Family supports family, right? Wow, that's incredible. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, just focus on making your presentation to the investors. I'll handle all the event details. This is going to change everything for me, Rebecca. I really think this business could be huge. I hope so, Tyler. I really hope so. We talked for a few more minutes about his food truck concept, gourmet grilled cheese sandwiches with exotic ingredients. It actually sounded like a decent idea, which made me feel slightly guilty about what I was planning. But only slightly. The next 3 weeks flew by in a blur of planning and preparation. I coordinated with Lisa at the venue, finalized catering menus, approved decoration schemes, and worked with Marcus to plan the documentation strategy. I also spent time crafting the presentation I would give Dad after the party, a detailed analysis of his return on investment. Marcus sent me daily updates from Denver. He'd been driven by Tyler's food truck, which was parked outside Dad's house, and confirmed that Tyler was indeed working on his business. He'd also scouted the venue and met with Lisa to coordinate the photography and videography angles. "This is going to be one hell of a documentation project," Marcus told me during one of our planning calls. "I've never seen anyone approach family drama with this level of professional thoroughness." "I learned from the best," I replied. "Dad always taught me that if you're going to do something, you should do it right." A week before the party, I received an unexpected call from Mom. She sounded excited and slightly overwhelmed. "Rebecca, honey, I just wanted to thank you for what you're doing for Tyler. Your father told me about the party, and I can't believe how generous you're being. It's important to Dad, so it's important to me. I know Tyler hasn't always been the easiest brother, but he's really trying this time. This food truck business seems different from his other ventures. He's been working on it for months, and he's actually sticking with it." "That's great, Mom. I hope it works out for him. I just want you to know that your father and I recognize what a big sacrifice this is for you. We know you work hard for your money, and we don't take your generosity for granted." The conversation was making me feel increasingly uncomfortable. Mom genuinely seemed grateful and touched by my gesture, and she had no idea about the real purpose behind my investment. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course, honey." "Do you remember my 30th birthday?" There was a pause. "Oh, Rebecca, I'm so sorry about that. I was working such long hours at the hospital, and your father was dealing with some issues at work. We both felt terrible about missing it." "But you didn't miss it. You forgot it entirely." "I know, and I have no excuse. We should have made time for you. Your birthday is important, and we dropped the ball." At least Mom was acknowledging the failure, which was more than Dad had done. I just sometimes feel like Tyler's achievements get more attention than mine. "Honey, that's not true. We're incredibly proud of you. You've built such a successful life in Chicago, and you've done it all on your own. Tyler needs more support because he's still figuring things out, but that doesn't mean we're not proud of you." "Then why didn't Dad come to my college graduation?" Another pause. "I don't know, Rebecca. I think your father sometimes takes your success for granted because you've always been so independent and capable. He probably assumes you don't need the same level of support that Tyler does." "But I do need it, Mom. I need to know that my accomplishments matter to you and Dad." "They do matter, sweetheart, more than you know. Maybe we don't show it enough, but we talk about you all the time. We're so proud of the woman you've become." The conversation was making me question my plan. Mom sounded sincere, and I could hear the regret in her voice, but I also knew that if I hadn't brought up my birthday, she never would have apologized. And Dad still hadn't acknowledged his failure at all. "I love you, Mom." "I love you too, honey. We'll see you at Tyler's party, right?" "I'll be there." "Good. I can't wait to see what you've put together. Tyler says you've been keeping all the details secret." "I want it to be a surprise." "I'm sure it will be wonderful. You've always been so thoughtful and organized." After hanging up, I sat staring at my phone, wondering if I was making a mistake. But then I remembered Dad's voice when he'd called asking for money. No apology, no acknowledgement of my birthday, just an immediate assumption that I would fund Tyler's dream while my own achievements went unnoticed. The party was happening, the documentation was happening, and Dad was going to get exactly what he'd asked for. A complete record of his investment in Tyler's future, presented with the same level of attention and care he'd shown for my milestone birthday. 2 days before the party, I booked a flight to Denver. I told my boss I was taking a long weekend to attend a family event, which was technically true. I just didn't mention that I was the one who'd orchestrated the entire event. As the plane descended into Denver International Airport, I looked out at the familiar landscape of my childhood and felt a strange mix of nervousness and anticipation. In 48 hours, my family would finally understand exactly what kind of daughter they'd been ignoring all these years. The surprise I was sending Dad was going to be worth every penny of the $3,200 I'd invested in Tyler's future. And unlike my 30th birthday, no one was going to forget this celebration. I landed in Denver on Friday afternoon, rented a car, and drove straight to a hotel near the venue. I'd deliberately chosen not to stay at my parents' house, telling them I had work calls to handle and needed a quiet space. The truth was, I needed to maintain some distance to execute my plan without getting emotionally derailed. Marcus met me at the hotel bar that evening. He looked excited and slightly mischievous, carrying a leather portfolio filled with equipment lists and shot schedules. "Rebecca Martinez, master of elaborate family revenge," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "I have to admit, I've been looking forward to this project more than any wedding I've shot this year." "Please tell me you're taking this seriously," I said, though I was smiling. "I need this documentation to be absolutely professional." "Oh, I'm taking it very seriously. Look at this." He opened his portfolio and spread out a detailed timeline. "I've mapped out every moment of tomorrow's event. Arrival shots, setup documentation, guest interviews, food presentation, Tyler's investor pitch, reaction shots from your parents, and a complete breakdown of all expenses." I studied his timeline, impressed by the thoroughness. "This is perfect. What about the testimonial station?" "I've created cards for guests to fill out with questions about their experience, the food quality, the venue, and their overall impression of Tyler's business potential. I'll also be doing video testimonials with key guests." "And the presentation equipment?" "All set up with the venue. I've coordinated with Lisa to have the projection screen ready for whatever you want to show during the party." I pulled out my laptop and showed Marcus the presentation I had been working on. "I've created a slideshow that will play during the party. It's designed to look like a celebration of Tyler's journey, but it's actually documenting every expense and decision that went into making this event happen." Marcus scrolled through the slides, his eyebrows rising with each one. "This is brilliant. You've turned financial transparency into an art form." The first slide was titled, "Tyler's Dream, a Family Investment." The following slides detailed every aspect of the party: venue costs, catering expenses, decoration fees, photography charges, and additional services. Each slide included professional graphics and charts showing the breakdown of costs and expected returns on investment. "The beauty of this," I explained, "is that it looks like a supportive presentation about Tyler's business potential, but it's actually a detailed invoice for Dad's emotional debt." "What about the grand finale?" I clicked to the final slides. "A comparison chart showing the investment in Tyler's party versus the investment in my career milestones. College graduation, $0 spent on celebration. Landing my first job, 0 acknowledgement. Promotion to senior marketing coordinator, 0 recognition. 30th birthday, 0 memory." Marcus stared at the screen. "You're going to show this at the party?" "I'm going to show this at the party, and then I'm going to present Dad with a complete documentation package afterward. Every photo, every receipt, every testimonial bound in a professional presentation folder." "And then what?" "Then I'm going to ask him for my return on investment." We spent the next hour refining the plan. Marcus would arrive early to document the setup process, capture Tyler's pre-party nerves, and interview the venue staff about their preparations. I would arrive fashionably late, just after the party had started, to make an entrance that would be properly documented. Saturday morning, I woke up feeling strangely calm. I'd spent months planning this moment, and now that it was here, I felt ready. I chose my outfit carefully. A professional but approachable dress that would photograph well and convey success without ostentation. At noon, Marcus texted me photos from the venue setup. The space looked incredible. Lisa and her team had transformed the warehouse district into a sophisticated launch party venue. String lights hung from the exposed brick walls, elegant table settings displayed the upgraded catering I'd arranged, and Tyler's food truck was parked outside with a professional banner announcing his business launch. "Your brother looks nervous but excited," Marcus texted. "Your parents arrived early to help with setup. Your dad keeps talking about how proud he is of Tyler's initiative." I smiled grimly. Dad's pride in Tyler's initiative was about to be put into proper perspective. At 2:30 p.m., I drove to the venue. The parking lot was already full of cars, and I could see people mingling outside Tyler's food truck, sampling his gourmet grilled cheese creations. Through the windows of the venue, I could see the party was in full swing. I took a deep breath and walked inside. The transformation was even more impressive in person. The space buzzed with conversation and laughter. Tyler stood near the center of the room, surrounded by potential investors and food bloggers, looking more confident than I'd seen him in years. He was wearing a crisp button-down shirt and dark jeans, and he'd actually gotten a decent haircut for the occasion. Mom spotted me first. She hurried over, her face lighting up with genuine happiness. "Rebecca, you made it! This is incredible, honey! I can't believe you put all this together!" She hugged me tightly, and I felt a pang of guilt. Mom's excitement was real, and she had no idea what I was actually doing. "I'm glad you like it, Mom. Where's Dad?" "He's over there talking to some of Tyler's potential investors. He's been bragging about you all day, telling everyone how successful you are in Chicago and how you made this party possible." Now Dad was bragging about me. The irony was almost too much to handle. "I need to check on a few things with the photographer," I said. "I'll catch up with you in a bit." I found Marcus near the back of the room, discreetly documenting the guest interactions. He nodded slightly when he saw me, then continued his work. The party was undeniably successful. The food was excellent, the venue was perfect, and the guests seemed genuinely impressed with Tyler's business concept. Several people were taking notes during his informal presentations, and I overheard at least 2 serious discussions about potential investment opportunities. For a moment, I felt conflicted. Tyler was actually doing well. This party was serving its intended purpose, and my investment was helping him succeed. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe this was just how families worked, supporting each other's dreams, even when the support wasn't always reciprocated. Then I saw Dad. He was standing near the dessert station, gesturing animatedly to a group of Tyler's friends. His voice carried across the room as he told them about Tyler's dedication, his hard work, his potential for success. He was glowing with paternal pride, basking in the reflected glory of Tyler's moment. "Tyler's always been entrepreneurial," Dad was saying. "Even as a kid, he had these big ideas and the drive to make them happen. I knew he'd find his path eventually." The same man who had forgotten my 30th birthday was now positioning himself as Tyler's biggest supporter and advocate. The same man who had asked me to fund this party was now taking credit for Tyler's success. My resolve returned. At 4 p.m., I made my way to the presentation area. Lisa had set up the projection screen as requested, and Marcus was ready with the audio equipment. I'd timed this moment for maximum impact. Late enough in the party that everyone would be relaxed and attentive, but early enough that they'd have time to process what they were seeing. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, tapping my wine glass to get everyone's attention, "I'd like to take a moment to share something special with you." The room quieted and all eyes turned to me. Tyler looked surprised but pleased, probably expecting a supportive speech about his business venture. "Today is a celebration of dreams and family support," I began. "Tyler's food truck launch represents months of hard work and dedication, and I'm proud to have been part of making this day possible." Dad beamed from across the room. Mom clasped her hands together, looking touched. "I thought it would be meaningful to share with you exactly what goes into creating a moment like this," I continued. "Sometimes we take for granted the investment that family members make in our success." I nodded to Marcus, who started the slideshow. The first slide appeared on the screen. Tyler's dream, a family investment. The guests murmured appreciatively. This looked like exactly the kind of supportive presentation they'd expect from a proud sister. The next slide showed a breakdown of venue costs. Premium event space, $1,200. Then catering, gourmet appetizer service, $800. Decorations, professional event styling, $400. Photography, complete documentation package, $600. Additional services, audio/visual equipment, $300. With each slide, I watched Dad's expression change, from pride to confusion to something approaching alarm. He was starting to understand what I was doing. "The total investment in Tyler's launch party, $3,200, I announced as the comprehensive cost breakdown appeared on screen. Significantly more than the $1,800 originally requested, because I believe in doing things right. The room was completely silent now. Guests were looking between me and the screen, trying to understand the tone of the presentation. But I wanted to put this investment in context, I continued, clicking to the next slide. So I've prepared a comparison chart showing family investment in milestone celebrations over the past 5 years. The slide that appeared showed a stark comparison. Tyler's food truck launch party, $3,200, Tyler's 25th birthday celebration, $500, Tyler's community college graduation, $200, Rebecca's 30th birthday celebration, $0, Rebecca's college graduation, $0, Rebecca's first job celebration, $0, Rebecca's promotion recognition, $0. The silence in the room was deafening. I could see Tyler's face turning red, and several guests were looking down at their plates, clearly uncomfortable. Family support comes in many forms, I said, my voice steady and professional. Sometimes it's financial investment in business ventures. Sometimes it's emotional investment in personal milestones. And sometimes it's simply remembering that important moments deserve recognition. Dad started walking toward me, his face flushed with anger, but I continued. Today's celebration cost approximately $107 per guest, which breaks down to roughly $18 per person per hour of entertainment. The return on investment will be measured in Tyler's business success, which I sincerely hope will be substantial. I clicked to the final slide. Thank you for helping us document this moment of family investment. Every expense, every detail, every memory has been professionally recorded for future reference. The room erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. Dad reached the front of the room, his face dark with fury. Rebecca, what the hell do you think you're doing? I'm doing exactly what you asked me to do, Dad. I'm supporting Tyler's business venture and documenting the family's investment in his success. This is not what I asked for. Actually, it's exactly what you asked for. You asked me to pay for Tyler's party, and I did. You asked me to support the family, and I have. I've simply provided the same level of detailed attention to Tyler's celebration that you provided to my 30th birthday. Tyler approached us, looking mortified. Rebecca, please stop. This is humiliating. Is it? I thought it was just family helping family. Isn't that what we do? Mom appeared at my elbow, her face pale. Honey, I think you've made your point. Have I, Mom? Because I'm not sure the point has been made clearly enough. I turned to address the room again. I want to thank everyone for attending Tyler's launch party. The complete documentation of this event, including all receipts, photographs, and testimonials, will be available for review. After all, transparency is important when making family investments. The party atmosphere had completely evaporated. Guests were finishing their drinks quickly and making polite excuses to leave. Tyler's potential investors were gathering their things, looking uncomfortable and eager to escape the family drama. Dad grabbed my arm. Outside, now! We walked out to the parking lot, leaving behind a room full of confused guests and a humiliated Tyler. Mom followed us, looking stricken. What is wrong with you? Dad demanded as soon as we were alone. You just destroyed Tyler's party. You embarrassed him in front of potential investors. How could you be so selfish? Selfish? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I just spent $3,200 on Tyler's party, Dad. I upgraded everything, hired professional documentation, and created a celebration that he'll never forget. How is that selfish? You know exactly what you did there. You made this about you. No, Dad, I made this about family investment. I made this about the cost of support and recognition. I made this about what it means to show up for the people you claim to love. This is about your birthday, isn't it? You're punishing Tyler because we forgot your birthday. This is about 30 years of watching you invest in Tyler's dreams while ignoring my achievements. This is about being asked to fund his success while my own milestones go unnoticed. This is about being treated like an ATM instead of a daughter. Mom stepped between us. Rebecca, honey, we made a mistake with your birthday. We acknowledged that. But this isn't the way to handle it. What would be the way to handle it, Mom? Should I have quietly sent the money and continued to be ignored? Should I have pretended it didn't hurt that Dad couldn't remember the most important birthday of my adult life, but had no problem asking me to pay for Tyler's party? We're family, Dad said. Family members support each other. You're right, Dad. Family members do support each other. And today, I've provided Tyler with the same level of support and attention you've provided me over the years. complete documentation, detailed record keeping, and a clear accounting of the investment made. I pulled out an envelope from my purse. This is for you. It's a complete breakdown of today's expenses, along with professional photographs and testimonials from the guests. Consider it a detailed report on your return on investment. Dad took the envelope, his hands shaking slightly with anger. I've also included a bill, I continued, for the difference between what you asked me to pay and what I actually spent. The additional $1,400 represents the premium I paid for proper documentation and professional presentation. Since this was such an important investment in Tyler's future, I thought it deserved the highest quality treatment. You're billing us for Tyler's party? I'm billing you for the upgrade costs. The $1,800 you originally requested was a gift. The additional $1,400 for professional documentation and enhanced services is a business expense. After all, if Tyler's food truck becomes successful, you'll both benefit from the investment. It's only fair that you contribute to the premium costs. Dad stared at me like he'd never seen me before. You've lost your mind. No, Dad. I finally found my perspective. For 30 years, I've been the invisible daughter, the one who's supposed to support everyone else's dreams while my own achievements go unnoticed. Today, I've made sure that Tyler's celebration gets the attention you think it deserves, and I've documented exactly what that attention costs. I turned to walk back to my rental car. The party was beautiful, by the way. Tyler should be proud of what he's accomplished, and you should be proud of what you've invested in his success. Rebecca, wait, Mom called after me. I stopped and turned back. What, Mom? Where do you go from here? What happens now? I looked at both of them. Dad still clutching the envelope, his face flushed with anger and confusion, and Mom looking heartbroken and lost. Now you have a choice, I said. You can continue to treat me like a convenient source of funding for Tyler's dreams, or you can start treating me like a daughter whose achievements and milestones matter. The documentation I've provided today shows exactly what I'm worth to this family. The question is whether you think that's enough. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them standing in the parking lot of Tyler's professionally documented launch party, holding a detailed invoice for 30 years of emotional debt. The drive back to my hotel was a blur of Denver streets and racing thoughts. My hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel as the adrenaline from the confrontation began to wear off. I'd done it. After 30 years of being the overlooked daughter, I'd finally made them see exactly what their favoritism had cost. But as I pulled into the hotel parking lot, the satisfaction I'd expected to feel was nowhere to be found. Instead, there was just an empty hollowness in my chest and the nagging question of whether I'd gone too far. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text after text from Tyler, each one more frantic than the last. Rebecca, please call me. We need to talk. I know you're hurt, but this wasn't fair to the investors. Can we please fix this somehow? I'm sorry about your birthday, I really am. I turned my phone off and went up to my room. Through the window, I could see the Denver skyline where I'd grown up, where I'd first learned that my achievements would always take second place to Tyler's needs. The city looked different now, smaller somehow, like a stage set I'd finally stepped away from. Around 8 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Marcus standing in the hallway, his camera equipment bag slung over his shoulder, and an expression of mixed concern and admiration on his face. Well, he said, stepping into the room, that was either the most brilliant piece of performance art I've ever witnessed, or the most spectacular family meltdown in Denver history. How bad was it after I left? Marcus set down his bag and pulled out his laptop. Tyler tried to salvage things with the investors. He gave an impromptu speech about family dynamics and how sometimes personal issues spill over into professional settings. Actually handled it pretty well, considering. He opened his laptop and showed me the final photos from the party. Tyler standing at the front of the room, his face serious but determined as he addressed the remaining guests. Dad and Mom in the background, looking shell-shocked. 3 of the potential investors stayed for his presentation, Marcus continued. One of them actually seemed more interested after seeing how he handled the crisis. Said it showed character and grace under pressure. I felt a small wave of relief. Whatever else had happened today, I hadn't completely destroyed Tyler's opportunity. What about Dad and Mom? They left about 20 minutes after you did. Your mom looked like she was crying, and your dad looked like he was ready to punch something. Tyler stayed until the end, thanking everyone personally and handing out business cards. Marcus pulled up the video testimonials he'd collected, guest after guest praising the food, the venue, the professional presentation. Several mentioned being impressed by Tyler's composure during what one person diplomatically called a family moment. "You know what's interesting?" Marcus said, scrolling through the footage. "A lot of the guests actually respected what you did, not the public nature of it, but the underlying message. One woman told me she wished she had the courage to confront her own family about their favoritism." I watched the testimonials with mixed emotions. These people had witnessed my breakdown and Tyler's humiliation, but somehow Tyler had managed to turn it into a demonstration of his professionalism. "He's going to be okay," Marcus said quietly. "Your brother is more resilient than you think." "I know. That's what makes this worse. Tyler never asked to be Dad's favorite. He never asked for special treatment. This isn't really his fault." "But it's not your fault either, Rebecca. You didn't create this dynamic." My phone buzzed with another text. This time it was from Mom. "Please call me when you're ready. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long time before responding, "I need some time to think." Her reply came immediately. "I understand, but please don't shut us out completely. We love you." The word love hit me harder than I expected. I did believe that Mom loved me. The problem wasn't a lack of love. It was a lack of awareness, a fundamental blindness to how their treatment had affected me over the years. Marcus stayed for another hour, helping me review all the documentation he'd created. The photographs were stunning, professional quality images that captured every detail of the party. The expense breakdown was comprehensive, the guest testimonials were positive, and the overall presentation was exactly what I'd envisioned. "What are you going to do with all this?" he asked as he packed up his equipment. "I don't know yet. Part of me wants to send it all to Dad as planned. Part of me wants to delete everything and pretend today never happened. You don't have to decide tonight. Sleep on it. See how you feel in the morning." After Marcus left, I ordered room service and tried to process what had happened. The professional side of me was impressed by the execution of my plan. Every detail had gone perfectly, from the upgraded venue to the documented expenses to the dramatic presentation. I'd made my point with surgical precision. But the daughter side of me felt hollow and exhausted. I'd spent months planning this moment of vindication, but now that it was over, I wasn't sure what I'd actually accomplished. Dad was angry, Mom was hurt, Tyler was humiliated, and I was alone in a hotel room, eating overpriced pasta and wondering if I'd just blown up my family for the sake of making a point. My phone rang around 10 o'clock. Tyler's name appeared on the screen, and after a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Hey," his voice was quiet, tired. "Hey, how are you doing?" "I've been better. Can we talk? I mean really talk, not just text messages." "I'm listening." Tyler was quiet for a moment, and I could hear traffic in the background. He was probably walking around outside, trying to clear his head. "I want to apologize," he said finally. "Not for the party or the investors or any of that. I want to apologize for being oblivious to how Mom and Dad have treated you all these years." I hadn't expected this. "Tyler?" "No, let me finish. I've been thinking about what you said about the investment comparison chart, and you're right. I've gotten celebration after celebration, support for every half-baked idea I've ever had, and I never once thought about what you were getting in return. You didn't ask for special treatment, but I accepted it. I took it for granted. When Dad missed your graduation to come to my baseball game, I knew it was wrong, but I didn't say anything because I wanted him there. When they forgot your birthday, I could have reminded them, but I was too wrapped up in my own stuff to think about it. I felt tears starting to form. This conversation wasn't going the way I'd expected. "The thing is," Tyler continued, "I always thought you were fine with it. You're so successful and independent, and you never seemed to need the same kind of attention I did. I thought you were above all that family drama stuff." "I wasn't fine with it, Tyler. I was just good at pretending I was fine with it. I know that now. And I'm sorry it took a public humiliation for me to realize what I should have seen years ago." We talked for almost an hour. Tyler told me about the investors who'd stayed, about the potential partnerships that might come from the party, about his genuine excitement for his business. But he also talked about the guilt he'd been carrying since the party ended, about finally understanding the pattern of favoritism I'd been subjected to. "What you did today was brutal," he said as our conversation wound down, "but it was also necessary. Mom and Dad needed to see what their priorities have been doing to you. I could have handled it differently. I could have talked to them privately instead of making a scene." Would they have listened? Really listened? I thought about all the Sunday phone calls where I'd tried to share my achievements, all the times I'd hinted about feeling overlooked, all the subtle attempts to get Dad's attention that had been dismissed or ignored. "Probably not," I admitted. "Then maybe public humiliation was the only language they would understand." After we hung up, I felt slightly better but still deeply conflicted. Tyler's apology had been genuine and thoughtful, but it didn't erase 30 years of differential treatment. And it certainly didn't resolve the larger issue with Dad. I spent a restless night alternating between regret and vindication. Part of me wanted to call Dad and apologize for the public nature of my confrontation. Part of me wanted to send him the complete documentation package exactly as planned, with a formal invoice for the additional expenses. Sunday morning, I woke up to a text from Mom asking if I wanted to meet for breakfast before my flight back to Chicago. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before responding that I'd meet her at a cafe near the airport. The cafe was busy with Sunday morning brunchers and travelers grabbing coffee before flights. I spotted Mom immediately. She was sitting in a corner booth, looking older and more tired than I remembered. When she saw me, her face lit up with relief. "Thank you for coming," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. "I wasn't sure you would. I needed to see you before I left." Mom had already ordered coffee for both of us. She wrapped her hands around her mug like she needed warmth. "Your father wanted to come, but I thought it would be better if we talked first, just the two of us." Probably wise. "Rebecca, I need you to know that what happened yesterday opened my eyes to things I should have seen years ago. The way we've treated you compared to Tyler, the way we've taken your success for granted while celebrating his every small victory, it's not fair, and it's not right." I could see tears forming in her eyes. "I've been replaying conversations in my head all night, thinking about all the times you tried to tell us how you felt, and we didn't listen. Your college graduation, your birthday, all those phone calls where you'd share good news, and we'd somehow end up talking about Tyler instead." "Mom, I'm not finished. I need to say this." She took a shaky breath. "We failed you as parents. Not because we don't love you. We do. More than you know. But because we took your strength for granted. We assumed that because you were successful and independent, you didn't need the same kind of support and recognition that Tyler needed. But I did need it. I still need it. I know that now, and I'm ashamed that it took such a dramatic wake-up call for us to see it." Mom reached across the table and took my hand. "The presentation you gave yesterday was devastating, but it was also accurate. Every number, every comparison, every point you made was true. We have invested more money, time, and attention in Tyler's dreams than in your achievements." "What about Dad? Is he going to acknowledge any of this?" Mom's expression grew troubled. "Your father is struggling with what happened. He's angry about the public nature of it, and he's having a hard time admitting that you were right. But I think, deep down, he knows you were. He asked me to send him money for Tyler's party 3 weeks after forgetting my birthday entirely, Mom, and he still hasn't apologized for that. I know, and that's something he needs to work through, but I can't force him to have that realization. It has to come from him." We talked for another hour about the family dynamics, about patterns that had been established when Tyler and I were children and had never been questioned or examined. Mom was genuinely remorseful and seemed to understand the depth of the problem in a way that surprised me. "What happens now?" I asked, as we prepared to leave. "I don't know," Mom said honestly. "I hope we can rebuild our relationship on a more equitable foundation. I hope your father will eventually understand what you were trying to tell us yesterday. And I hope Tyler takes this opportunity to grow into the man I think he can become. And if Dad doesn't come around, then we'll have to figure out how to have a relationship without him understanding this. But I'm not giving up on him, and I hope you won't either." Mom walked me to my rental car and hugged me tightly before I left for the airport. "I love you, Rebecca. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to show you that properly." The flight back to Chicago gave me time to process everything that had happened. I'd achieved my goal of making my family understand the cost of their favoritism. But the victory felt more complicated than I'd expected. Tyler had grown from the experience, Mom had genuinely recognized the problem, but Dad remained resistant to acknowledging his failures. As the plane touched down at O'Hare, I made a decision about the documentation package Marcus had created. I would send it to Dad, but not as an invoice or a weapon. Instead, I would send it as a record of what family investment looked like when it was done thoughtfully and completely. Back in my Chicago apartment, I spent Monday evening crafting a letter to accompany the documentation. Dad, enclosed is the complete record of Tyler's launch party, as promised. The photographs capture a successful event, the testimonials reflect genuine appreciation for Tyler's business concept, and the expense breakdown shows exactly what $3,200 in family investment produces. I'm not sending this to hurt you or to demand repayment. I'm sending it because I want you to see what thoughtful support looks like. Every detail was planned, every expense was justified, and every element was designed to give Tyler the best possible chance of success. This is what I wanted from you, not money, but attention, not gifts, but recognition, not special treatment, but equal treatment. Tyler's party was beautiful because someone cared enough to make it beautiful. My achievements have gone uncelebrated because no one cared enough to make them special. I don't need you to throw me a party or apologize for the past. But I do need you to see me as clearly as you see Tyler. I need my successes to matter to you as much as his do. I need to be your daughter, not just Tyler's sister. The choice is yours. Love, Rebecca. I mailed the package on Tuesday morning and then tried to return to normal life. Work helped. I had campaigns to manage, presentations to prepare, and deadlines to meet. But I found myself checking my phone constantly, waiting for some response from Dad. The response came on Friday, exactly 1 week after Tyler's party. Not a phone call or a text, but a package delivered to my office. Inside was a small wooden picture frame containing a photo I'd never seen before. Me at my college graduation, smiling broadly in my cap and gown. Dad was in the background, partially hidden behind another family, but clearly present. Attached to the frame was a note in Dad's handwriting. Rebecca, I was there. I've always been proud of you. I'm sorry I'm so bad at showing it. Can we try again? Dad. P.S. Tyler's business is doing well. 2 investors committed after the party. You were right about everything. I sat in my office holding the frame and crying, not from sadness, but from relief. It wasn't a complete apology or a full acknowledgement of 30 years of differential treatment, but it was a beginning. My phone rang. Dad's name appeared on the screen. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweetheart. Did you get my package? I did, thank you. I want to do better, Rebecca. I don't know how to fix the past, but I want to do better going forward. That's all I ever wanted, Dad, for you to see me. I see you. I've always seen you. I just didn't know how to tell you. We talked for an hour. Really talked. Perhaps for the first time in our adult relationship. Dad admitted that he'd treated Tyler and me differently. That he'd taken my success for granted. And that he'd failed to celebrate my achievements the way they deserved to be celebrated. Your presentation at Tyler's party was brutal, he said, but it was also accurate. Every point you made was fair. I could have handled it more privately. Would I have listened if you had? Really listened? It was almost exactly what Tyler had asked me, and the answer was the same. Probably not. I've been thinking about your 30th birthday, Dad continued. How I could forget something so important. How I could call you 3 weeks later asking for money without even acknowledging what I'd missed. It's inexcusable. Dad. No, let me finish. I want to make it up to you. Not with money or a party, but with attention. I want to know about your life, your work, your goals. I want to be the father you deserve to have all along. 6 months later, I flew home for Thanksgiving. The family dynamic had shifted in subtle but important ways. Dad asked me detailed questions about my work and listened to my answers without redirecting the conversation to Tyler. Mom made sure to give equal attention to both of our accomplishments. And Tyler, whose food truck business was indeed thriving, made a point of acknowledging my role in his success during dinner. "I want to thank Rebecca," he said, raising his wine glass, "not just for helping with the launch party, but for teaching all of us what family support really looks like." Dad nodded in agreement to Rebecca, who showed us that being family means more than just sharing the same last name. It means showing up for each other's successes and making sure everyone knows they matter. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. 30 years of established patterns don't disappear overnight. But it was progress, and it was genuine. Most importantly, it was a foundation we could build on. As I flew back to Chicago that Sunday, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us to this point. The $3,200 I'd spent on Tyler's party had been the most expensive lesson in family dynamics I'd ever purchased, but it had also been the most effective. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who need the strongest wake-up call to realize they're not showing that love properly. Sometimes the only way to be seen is to make such a dramatic gesture that being ignored becomes impossible. I'd set out to teach my family about the cost of favoritism, but I'd learned something important myself, that demanding the love and respect you deserve isn't selfish, it's necessary. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for your family is to force them to confront their own blindness. The invisible daughter had finally made herself seen, and in doing so, she'd given her family the chance to love her better. That, in the end, was worth every penny. 6 months after that Thanksgiving, I received another call from Dad. This time, he wasn't asking for money. He was calling to tell me that my marketing campaign had been featured in a trade magazine, and he'd seen the article online. "I printed it out," he said, his voice warm with pride. "I'm going to frame it and put it in my office, right next to the photo of Tyler's food truck." Equal recognition, equal pride, equal love. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.